The old mansion stood alone. It was deep within the woods, Willowbrook, they called it. No one dared speak its name above a whisper. The townsfolk knew its story. It was a tale of madness and betrayal. A curse hung over the house. The mansion was grand once. Now it was decaying. The windows were like vacant eyes. Vines clung to its rotting walls. They were like skeletal fingers. The iron gates were rusted shut. They warned visitors away. Some said the house breathed. They said it sighed with the wind. Others told of strange lights. They flickered in the dead of night. But the most disturbing thing was the silence. It was heavy. It was oppressive. It was the silence of a watchful presence. The mansion was a scar on the landscape. It was a monument to tragedy, and tonight it awaited new victims. A storm raged. Rain lashed against the car. Inside, Emma shivered. "Are you sure about this, Jake?" she asked. "Relax," Jake laughed. He dismissed her fear. "It's just an old house, perfect for a little adventure." Adventure. That's what drew them to Willowbrook. Emma, a writer, craved inspiration. Jake, a photographer, was drawn to the macabre beauty of the house. They were a curious pair. They were drawn to the unknown. The car lurched to a stop. They were at the foot of the driveway. The iron gates loomed before them. The mansion was a shadow in the distance. "Ready?" Jake asked, a mischievous glint in his eyes. Emma hesitated. A cold dread washed over her, but she nodded. They were in too deep now. They had to see it through. The front door creaked open. It was as if the house was inhaling them. The air inside was stale and cold. Dust swirled in the faint moonlight that sliced through the grimy windows. Cobwebs clung to everything. Emma ran a hand along the wall. The wallpaper was peeling. She could almost hear the echoes of the past. Laughter, screams, silence. They explored the house. Each room was a portrait of decay. A grand dining room with a table set for a feast long gone cold. A nursery filled with toys coated in dust. And then, the basement. The air grew colder as they descended. The smell of mildew was overpowering. Jake's flashlight flickered. It cast long, dancing shadows. They came to a door. It was bolted shut. "What do you think is in there?" Emma whispered. Jake grinned. He loved a good mystery. With a grunt, he forced the door open. The room was bare except for a single item. A mirror. It stood in the center of the room. It was draped in a black cloth. Section 4. The mirror's grip. The mirror called to Emma. It was a low hum in the back of her mind. She felt drawn to it. She couldn't explain why. "Don't touch it, Emma," Jake warned. He sensed the danger. But Emma wasn't listening. She slowly lifted the cloth. The mirror was ornate. It was silver, etched with intricate designs. As she stared into its depths, she felt a chill. It was as if someone was watching her. Her reflection, however, was not her own. It was a woman. She was beautiful, but her eyes were filled with a terrible sadness. Suddenly, the mirror glowed. A cold hand shot out. It grabbed Emma's wrist. She screamed. She struggled against the grip, but it was too strong. She was pulled through the mirror. She vanished into its depths. "Emma!" Jake shouted. He lunged for her, but he grasped at empty air. The mirror was still. It was as if nothing had happened. Jake was alone. He was surrounded by the silence. The house seemed to press in on him. He could hear a soft whisper. It came from the shadows. It called his name. Section 5. Facing Lady Willowbrook. Jake wandered the halls. His fear turned to desperation. "Emma!" he called out. His voice echoed through the empty house. He was met with silence. He reached the top of the grand staircase. A cold wind hit him. It carried the scent of lavender and decay. He heard a woman sobbing. He followed the sound. It led him to a bedroom. The door was ajar. He pushed it open. The room was dark. A single candle flickered on a vanity. It illuminated a woman. She was sitting in a chair. Her back was to Jake. She was dressed in a long white gown. Her hair was as black as night. She was brushing it slowly, methodically. "Emma?" Jake asked, his voice trembling. The woman turned. Her face was a mask of sorrow. Her eyes were pools of endless sadness. She was breathtakingly beautiful, but she was no longer human. "You seek the one they call Emma?" the woman said. Her voice was a hollow whisper. "She is mine now, as are you." Jake recognized the woman from the stories, Lady Willowbrook. Betrayed by her lover and murdered within these very walls. Her spirit was bound to the mansion, forever trapped. "Let her go," Jake pleaded. He knew it was futile, but he had to try. Lady Willowbrook laughed. It was a chilling sound. "This house demands a price," she hissed, "and you have already paid it." Section 6. No escape. The sun rose. It cast a pale light over the mansion. The storm had passed, but the sense of dread lingered. The townsfolk gathered at the foot of the driveway. They whispered amongst themselves. They had heard the screams in the night. They knew what it meant. The front door stood open. It was an invitation. The sheriff entered first. His hand hovered over his holster. The townsfolk followed. They were hesitant. They were fearful. The mansion was silent. It was empty. There was no sign of Emma or Jake, only the lingering scent of lavender. And a single black button. It lay on the floor. It was Jake's. The townsfolk whispered. They shook their heads. Another 2 souls claimed by Willowbrook. The mansion remained. It stood as a testament to its dark history. It was a warning to anyone who dared to enter its domain. Willowbrook had its prisoners. It would never let them go.